The next question, the next big point, is this serious consideration towards shirk, towards tawheed, an Islamic obsession, unique to Islam only? Is it only written in the Quran, in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad? Sometimes I feel that all of you should be joining us. Even if you do not want to become Muslim, right? You should be joining us when we are talking about these issues. Why? Because if I am not mistaken, if I am wrong, please correct me. What we are saying with regards to tawheed and shirk exists also in your texts, exists also in your books, not only the Jews and the Christians, but also the Hindus and other religions. You also speak about monotheism. What I understand is that even your books condemn polytheism and idol worship. Even in Hinduism, some madhab saying that it's not haram, but still it's lesser. Idol worship is lesser. And there are some harsh statements even you can find condemning idol worship. So sometimes I wonder, why are the Muslims left alone speaking about this, when our books agree actually in many of these methods? Now, let us look at the Old Testament first. Let us quote some verses to prove what I'm saying. Exodus 22:20. Whoever sacrifices to any god except to the Lord alone shall be utterly destroyed. Look at the harsh statement in the Torah, in the Pentateuch, in the Old Testament. Whoever sacrifices to any god except to the Lord alone shall be utterly destroyed. And I don't have to repeat myself with regards to Shema and with regards to the 10 Commandments. You shall not worship other gods. Why are we left alone? Why are the Muslims left alone talking about Tawheed? Where are the Jews? Why are you not with us talking about this? That we should only worship one God and we should not worship graven images, idols. The Jews, clear. Let's go to the Christians. Let's go to the New Testament. If I am wrong, correct me. This is what I read. This is what I learned from your text. If I am wrong, correct me. If I misunderstood your verses, correct me. Respond to this video academically. Isn't it true? Isn't it not true that in Leviticus 19:4, it is said, do not turn to idols or make metal gods for yourselves. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols or make metal gods for yourselves. So this is a prohibition even in your text. But the question is, how come some of your churches also have idols, right? Have statues. 1 Corinthians 10:7. Do not be idolaters. 1 John 5:21. Dear children, keep yourselves from idols. Isaiah 45:20. Listen to this. Ignorant are those who carry about idols of wood, who pray to gods that cannot save. It sounds very similar to the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, many texts, many. Should I take a lot other than God? If He wants to harm me, then who can save me? That is the crux of the ayah, that no one can save me. Same. Ignorant are those who carry about idols of wood, who pray to gods that cannot save. The Quran also says these things many times. You cannot give them victory. You cannot help them. What about in Revelation 9:20? No, the reason why I quote these verses, I'm asking you, why are you leaving us alone doing this work? Aren't we not supposed to be together promoting monotheism? Isaiah 20. Revelation 9:20. Did you not stop worshipping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood? Idols that cannot see or hear or walk. So do not leave us alone doing this work. Fellow Christians, friends from the Christian religion, from the Jewish religion, let us speak out against idolatry. Let us speak out against polytheism, as how our texts have stated these verses clearly. Let us go to the Vedas in the Bhagavad Gita. Again, if I am wrong, correct me. If I quote these verses out of context, correct me. Respond to this with a video or a write-up correcting my quotations. In Yajurveda 32:3, this is the famous verse that Dr. Zakir Naik likes to quote. Natasha Pratima Ast. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is not accurate. But what I know is that the translation goes, there is no image of him. There is no image of Brahma. Book 13, hymn 4, verse 16. 13:4-16. He is one and there is no second. Qul huwallahu ahad. Say God, one and only. Bhagavad Gita 7:20. Those who has been stolen by material desires worship demigods. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires worship demigods or devas. Isn't this not a criticism against idol worship? No, I understand. Some may come and say, no, they believe in pantheism, or they believe in pantheism, that everything is a manifestation of God. But our next question will be, then why are you taking images to represent this God? Can't you worship him without images? And why are you giving personalities to these images, to these idols? You're not saying that this is an attribute of God. You're saying that this is a being, right? Hanuman is a being, right? Vishnu is a being, right? Krishna is a being in himself. Krishna is not Hanuman. But some sects among the Hindus will say, no, Hanuman is Krishna. Everything is one. Then the next question that we should ask our Hindu friends, then if everything is God, then who are you fighting in India? If you're fighting the Muslims, for example, some of these Hindu extremists, I'm not talking about all Hindus, the Hindu extremists in India, who is anti-Muslim, what are you antiing actually? Are you not antiing a manifestation of God too? Right? Is it not true that everything is a manifestation of God? Help us understand this, help us understand. I may misunderstand you. I may misunderstand your religion. Then help us understand it. In Bhagavad Gita 9:25, those who worship the gods go to the gods, but my devotees come to me. Gods translated here with small g, but my here, letter M. Those who worship the gods go to the gods. That means if you worship a god with small g, you will go to that God. That means you are not worshipping the one true God. This is the problem with polytheism, idol worship. Now, if these scriptures oppose idol worship, shouldn't their followers support Muslims in our battle against polytheism rather than oppose us? Why Islam rejects idol worship? What is the problem? Some even say, oh, this is just a symbol for the one true God. We're not worshipping the stones or the woods. I believe this part many Muslims even understand. I think many Muslims believe that the statues that they worship, they do not believe that, for example, if the statue is made of jade, I don't think any Muslims believe that, they believe that this jade is God, is eternal, uncreated, correct? And will be forever. I've never found any Muslims who assumes that of the belief of the idol worshippers. Is it the belief of the Muslims that they think that the mushrikun believes that the woods and the stones is not created, has no beginning? Yes, there are rhetorical questions coming from the Quran saying, are you worshipping something that cannot speak, something that cannot hear, pointing to these woods and stones? Why? Because some of the polytheists, some of the idol worshippers believe that God is in the idols. Some of the uneducated ones. The educated ones will not say something like that. The educated ones will say that these images is used to help people to focus on the imageless God. The God is imageless, has no form. So these forms are created to help people, common people, to worship God. This is what the intelligent ones will say. But the common among the believers, they may even believe that God is inside the statue. So it has become one. But as Muslims, we are not that foolish to assume that from all of the idol worshippers, right? Our problem is this. In one of the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, he explained to us the origin of idol worship, the origin of polytheism. It began as veneration towards pious people. And I believe this also includes ancestor veneration, especially when your ancestor is a very good person, very pious person, right? It's just normal that people venerate pious people, good people. Until today, we idolize, in that sense, we idolize pious people or good people. Everyone falls in love with such a human being. And the society needs to continue to love such human beings. There's still many of them in the society, alhamdulillah. So the Prophet Muhammad explained, before the times of Noah, the Prophet Noah, there's these five important personalities. These are pious people, and when they pass away, people felt devastated because they are like the moral battery of the society. They give inspiration. They teach people patience. They teach people gratitude. They teach people how to live life with honor, with dignity. So when they pass away, of course, it devastates the nation, the people. So one day, the devil came to these people and said, you should not forget these people. And I have an idea. I have a suggestion for you. Why don't you build statues that mimics these 5 pious people, so that whenever, you feel down, you can go and visit these idols. So the Prophet Muhammad said that actually took place. The people actually built idols. But the Prophet also said, "Falam tu'bad." During that moment, these idols were not worshipped yet, even though the statues have been built. Are you saying that all of the statues that have been built is for worship? No. So you cannot simply say anyone who builds a statue or have a statue in his country, that's a mushrik country, right? No. You may be building the statue so that the next generation remembers their prime minister, for example, or their warriors in war. But it's haram in Islam. Why? Because it leads to, later the Prophet said, the first generation, they understood it. Wherever they are down, they will go to the statues to remember these pious people. They don't worship it. But the next generation do not understand what took place. And they started to assume, this must be gods. Why? Because my forefathers, when they have troubles in their life, they will go to these idols. They must be gods. Only then it started to be worshipped. And I believe the same thing happens with Confucianism and Taoism when it comes to ancestor worship, right? It begins as veneration. You should venerate your loved ones, especially your parents. You should remember the good things that they have done for you. You should not forget them. This is a good thing that the filial piety in the Chinese culture is very good. But the moment it steps beyond that, beyond veneration to the level of, I have to pray to my ancestor in order for me to pass my exam or get job employment. They started to believe that the ancestors have this power to harm and benefit, right? Some even believe something more than that. Then in Islam, when it comes to that level, it starts to become polytheism, it starts to become shirk, it starts to become worship. But if it's just veneration, love, putting a picture of your loved one, because the Prophet himself said that even after the building of that statue, why? Because there's no belief yet. People have not believed that this is a God. They just come here because it's pious people, reminds them of piety. But the moment they believe that these pious people are gods, then worship happens. That's why we define worship as there needs to be an element of belief that that object of worship is a God. Now, so our question is, if you claim that these images, these idols are just symbols, then why worship this 1, 2, 3, 4 symbols? Why don't you worship the one who represents, the one whom these symbols are representing? That's our question. That is our point that we are puzzled with. You may claim that this is the symbol for wealth, or this is the God of this is the God of that. Why do you break God down to pieces? Why don't you pray? Why don't you worship the being which these symbols are representing? If you claim that these idols are just symbols, but if you believe that these idols are beings in themselves, a representation of certain beings. For example, Krishna have his own being. He is not just a symbol, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Common Hindus believe that Krishna is a being in himself. Ganesh, Lord Murugan, he's a being that is not different that's not the same from other beings, from other gods. That means they are not symbols, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. They are not symbols. They are beings. You may ask, what about the Kaaba then? I believe I've answered that question already. If you understand the previous point, then you will understand. Because the Kaaba is not even a representation of God. We do not say that it represents God. Do you find any Muslim saying that the squareness of the Kaaba and the blackness of the Kaaba represents attributes of God? Have you ever heard any Muslim saying that? The squareness represents stability of God. There's only one structure, meaning Tawheed. No. We've never said something like that. It's not even a representation of God. The figurative state, the figurative word, saying that we say that the Kaaba is the house of God. No Muslims believe that God stays inside that structure. No. What we mean by that is, if you come for Umrah and Hajj, you are the guest of God. That is the meaning. You will be honored by God, because God do not need place and God is not restricted by time. That is the Aqidah. The Kaaba doesn't have its own being. You see, it's not the same with people believing that Lord Murugan is not Hanuman. because they believe these two have different beings, even though the pantheists among them will believe, but in the end of the day, these two is a manifestation of the one. This is Wahdatul Wujud, if you want to understand. The perfect representation of Wahdatul Wujud is in Advaita Vedanta, one school in Hinduism. And Wahdatul Wujud is not Islam. Okay? This version of Wahdatul Wujud is not Islam. It is not Tawheed. Okay? So what is the Kaaba then? Many of our non-Muslim friends assume that in the Kaaba there's idols or there's, strange objects. No, there's nothing inside the Kaaba. Okay, there's nothing inside the Kaaba. It's just pillars. That pillar is for the structure of the Kaaba itself. What is the Kaaba? The Kaaba is just the direction for prayer. That is all. To unite Muslims' prayer. That is the point. That is the purpose. We can worship even without the structure of the Kaaba. Just the point is important. Even if the Kaaba is destroyed, can the Muslims still pray? Yes. And must the Muslims still face the Qibla? Yes. That means the Kaaba is just a point of direction for prayer. It is not a representation of God. It is not an image of God. And it is not a presentation of a being that is other than God. It has no personality. It has no thought. It has no action. It has no consciousness in that sense.